My entire family abandoned my wedding reception, acting like they never received the invitation. But the DJ accidentally connected to the wrong Bluetooth and started playing audio from a video of my father saying, "Let's not even waste our time with this. She'll be divorced in 6 months like she always does." It was a Zoom meeting they were having from the venue parking lot, deciding whether to come in or not based on how much my husband makes per year. The champagne glass slipped from my hand, shattering against the marble floor of the Meridian Banquet Hall, as my father's voice echoed through the sound system, clear as crystal to all 150 guests who had actually bothered to show up. The DJ scrambled to disconnect the audio, his face bright red with panic, but not before my mother's voice chimed in through the speakers. "I mean, a teacher? Patricia, we raised her better than this. Amanda married an investment banker. Why couldn't Jessica aim higher?" The silence in that elegant ballroom was suffocating. David's hand found mine, his grip tight and supportive, while his parents stood nearby looking mortified on our behalf. My best friend Mia's jaw literally dropped open, but instead of crying or running out like everyone expected, I did something that surprised even myself. I bent down, carefully picked up a shard of the broken champagne glass, set it on the nearest table, and smiled. Not a sad smile or a broken smile, but the kind of smile that meant I knew something nobody else did. I am Jessica Martinez, 28 years old, and I had just married the love of my life despite my family's pathological obsession with status and money. For 3 months, ever since David proposed with his grandmother's modest but beautiful vintage ring, my parents had been trying to talk me out of the wedding. My father, Robert Martinez, built his real estate development company on the foundation of appearances and connections. My mother, Patricia, spent her days at country club luncheons and charity galas, where being seen mattered more than actual kindness. My older sister, Amanda, had married exactly the kind of man they wanted. Trevor Blackwell, an investment banker who made $300,000 a year and never let anyone forget it. They looked at David, a high school history teacher who spent his own money on classroom supplies and made $55,000 a year, and saw failure. They looked at our combined income of $120,000 and saw poverty. But what they didn't know was that I had been recording every cruel comment, every dismissive phone call, every passive-aggressive text message for the past 3 months. And I worked in social media marketing for one of Chicago's fastest-growing digital agencies. I knew exactly what kind of content went viral, and I knew exactly how to destroy someone's carefully curated reputation. The wedding ceremony had been beautiful. David's parents, humble immigrants who had worked multiple jobs to send him to college, cried tears of joy as we exchanged vows. His younger sister gave a heartfelt reading about love transcending material wealth. Mia, my maid of honor since elementary school, had held my bouquet with shaking hands because she knew what my family had been saying about this day. When I walked down the aisle and saw only David's family on the groom's side, and a glaring empty space where my parents and sister should have been sitting, something inside me shifted from hurt to cold, calculated anger. I had sent those invitations myself, hand-delivered them to my parents' house in the suburbs, watched my mother place them on her imported Italian marble countertop, and promised they would be there. The lie had been delivered with the same fake smile she gave to people she considered beneath her at her charity events. The reception should have been a celebration. Instead, it became the catalyst for everything that followed. As the DJ worked frantically to switch to the planned playlist, I walked calmly to where David stood looking concerned. "Are you okay?" he whispered, his dark eyes searching mine for signs of the breakdown everyone else expected. I touched his face gently and said loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "I'm better than okay. Dance with me?" Our first dance as husband and wife happened while my father's cruel words still hung in the air, while guests whispered and shot sympathetic looks our way. While somewhere in the parking lot, my family sat in their expensive cars deciding my marriage wasn't worth their time. But I had something they didn't know about. The DJ's Bluetooth mishap had been recorded by our wedding photographer, who captured audio and video of everything. I had the entire Zoom call, crystal clear, from my father's disgusted tone discussing David's salary to my mother's horrified gasp when she calculated that we would only have a household income of around $120,000. My sister's voice had been particularly venomous. "God, can you imagine them at family Christmas? We'll have to pretend David's little teaching stories are interesting while Trevor talks about his latest acquisition." The photographer James approached me during the cake cutting with his camera still recording. "Jessica, I need to show you something," he said quietly, angling his screen so only David and I could see. The timestamp showed my family's cars in the parking lot, 30 minutes before the ceremony. James had been outside capturing arrival shots when he noticed them. Your dad's voice was coming through my wireless mic receiver. I got the whole thing recorded before I realized what I was hearing. He looked genuinely upset on my behalf. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but after what just happened with the DJ, I figured you'd want to know I have a clean copy. Better quality than what played through the speakers. David's arm tightened around my waist as we watched the footage. My father sat in his Mercedes, my mother in the passenger seat, Amanda and Trevor visible in their BMW parked beside them, all four of them on a Zoom call visible through the car windows. My father's tablet propped on his dashboard. The venue is nice, I'll give her that. My mother's voice came through clearly, but she used up her entire savings for this. What happens when they can't afford a house? When they can't send their children to decent schools? Trevor's laugh was sharp and mocking. Let's be honest, Patricia. Teachers marry teachers. She could have had options, but she chose to slum it with someone who will never make partner or close a deal worth talking about. I felt David stiffen beside me, his jaw clenching, but I squeezed his hand and kept watching. My father's face filled the frame as he leaned closer to his tablet camera. Here's what we do. We give it 6 months, maybe a year. She'll realize what she's missing when she sees Amanda's new house, when Trevor gets his year-end bonus. Then we can stage an intervention, help her exit gracefully. The divorce will be expensive for them, but we can make it easier if she comes back to her senses. My mother nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. And Robert, you can offer David some money to make it clean. Men like that always have a price. 20,000? 30? That's probably more than he makes in half a year. James stopped the recording, his expression grim. There's 23 minutes of this. They discussed everything from David's student loans to how his parents' accents embarrassed them. Your sister suggested you were having some kind of breakdown and needed psychiatric evaluation. He paused, then added, I can delete this if you want, or I can make sure you have copies in multiple formats. Your call, but as someone who's photographed 300 weddings, this is the cruelest thing I've ever witnessed. I looked at David, whose face had gone pale. His parents had sacrificed everything to give him opportunities. His mother cleaned houses while his father worked construction, both taking English classes at night, both believing in education as the path to a better life. They had been so proud when he got his teaching position, so honored when he asked their blessing to marry me. And my family had sat in a parking lot calculating his worth in dollars while mocking everything he represented. Make copies, I said to James, my voice steady. Every format you have. And send me the raw files. I'll pay extra for rush delivery. The reception continued around us, but I was already planning. My job at Velocity Digital Marketing wasn't just about posting pretty pictures on Instagram. I specialized in crisis management and viral content strategy. I knew exactly how to frame a story, how to time a release, how to make sure something reached maximum exposure. My father's business, Martinez Development Group, depended entirely on his reputation in Chicago's affluent suburbs. His clients were wealthy families looking for someone they could trust with luxury home construction and commercial developments. His country club memberships, his charity board positions, his carefully cultivated image as a family man who valued relationships. All of it could be destroyed with the right kind of exposure. David's best man, his college roommate Eric, pulled me aside near the end of the reception. I overheard some of the guests talking. They're pissed, Jessica. Like, really pissed. Mrs. Henderson from David's school was crying. She said she's known your family socially for years and never realized they were such snobs. He gestured around the room. You've got doctors here, small business owners, teachers, artists, real people who showed up because they care about you too. And everyone heard what your family said. This isn't going to just blow over. He was right. I could see it in the way guests approached us throughout the evening. Their congratulations tinged with righteous anger on our behalf. David's principal, a formidable woman named Dr. Chen, shook my hand firmly and said, Your husband is one of the finest educators I've ever worked with. He changes lives every single day. Some people measure worth in dollars. The rest of us know better. A pediatrician who attended my gym gave me her card and whispered, If you need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. What your family did is unforgivable. By the time David and I left for our honeymoon suite at the hotel next door, I had received 37 text messages from wedding guests expressing support and outrage. Mia sent a long message detailing how she had always hated my family's elitism, but stayed quiet to support me. James had already uploaded the files to a secure cloud folder with a password. And I had spent 20 minutes in the bathroom scrolling through my father's company social media accounts, my mother's public Facebook profile where she posted constantly about family values, and my sister's Instagram, where she portrayed herself as a loving, supportive sibling. David collapsed on the hotel bed, still in his tuxedo, looking emotionally exhausted. I can't believe they didn't even come inside. Like, I knew they didn't approve, but to not even show up for 30 minutes? To sit outside calculating whether we're worth their time? His voice cracked slightly. My parents spent $2,000 they didn't have on new outfits for today because they wanted to honor your family. And your family couldn't be bothered to walk through a door. I sat beside him, still in my wedding dress, and pulled out my phone. David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. He turned to look at me, confused. How would you feel if I made sure everyone knew exactly what kind of people they are? Not just the wedding guests, but everyone. Their business associates, their country club friends, everyone they've ever impressed with their fake family values act. His expression shifted, surprise mixing with something darker. You mean like, expose them publicly? I nodded. I mean exactly that. I have the recording. I have 3 months of text messages where they called you worthless. I have voicemails where my mother suggested I was mentally ill for choosing you. And I have the professional skills to make sure it reaches the exact audience that would destroy their reputation. I paused, watching his face carefully. But this is your life too now. If I do this, it will get ugly. They'll retaliate. Your name will be in it. So I need to know you're okay with it. David was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then he sat up, took my hands in his, and said something I'll never forget. Jessica, I watched my parents get treated like they were invisible for years because of their accents, their jobs, the neighborhood we lived in. I've had students whose parents look at me like I'm not good enough to teach their kids because I don't wear expensive suits. Your family represents everything wrong with how people judge worth. He squeezed my hands tighter. If you can show people who they really are behind the designer clothes and charity galas, then yeah, I'm okay with it. More than okay. Because maybe it'll make one person think twice before treating someone as disposable based on their bank account. That was all I needed to hear. I kissed my husband, then opened my laptop and got to work. The honeymoon was supposed to be 2 weeks in Italy, a trip we had saved for over a year, but I spent our first 3 days in a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago instead, working on what I had started calling Project Exposure in my head. David explored the city during the day, visiting museums and bringing me back coffee and pastries while I crafted the perfect strategy. You're kind of terrifying when you're focused like this, he said on the third morning, watching me create multiple backup copies of the parking lot video. Remind me never to get on your bad side. I had already edited the footage down to a devastating 11-minute highlight reel. It started with my father's voice saying, "Let's not even waste our time with this. She'll be divorced in 6 months like she always does," immediately establishing the cruelty. Then it cut to my mother's rant about David's salary being embarrassing, followed by Amanda's suggestion that I needed psychiatric help for marrying beneath my station. Trevor's comment about David's parents' accents was particularly damning, delivered with a sneer that the car window couldn't hide. The video ended with my father calculating how much money it would take to bribe David into divorcing me, casually suggesting $30,000 like it was nothing. But I didn't just have the video. I had spent the past 3 days documenting everything. Screenshots of text messages where my mother called David, "That charity case teacher you're wasting your life on." Voicemails from my father explaining that Martinez Development Group couldn't be associated with financial mediocrity, and that my marriage would hurt his business reputation. An email chain where Amanda suggested I was making a mistake and should really consider therapy before going through with the wedding. I compiled it all into a comprehensive folder, organizing it chronologically to show a clear pattern of classist abuse spanning months. James, the photographer, delivered the final wedding photos on day 4. Along with beautiful shots of the ceremony and reception, he had included every frame of my family's cars in that parking lot, timestamps showing they arrived 45 minutes before the ceremony and stayed through the entire reception, never once coming inside. "I don't usually do this," James said, handing me a flash drive, "but I added some context shots. Your mom checking her makeup in the car mirror during your first dance. Your dad on his phone during your cake cutting. Your sister literally laughing at something on her screen while your vows were happening inside. I figured if you were going to tell this story, you might as well tell all of it." The support from wedding guests had been overwhelming. Dr. Chen, David's principal, had called personally to say that the entire school district was appalled by what they had heard at the reception. Mrs. Henderson, who had known my family through various charity boards, had resigned from 2 organizations where my mother held leadership positions, citing fundamental differences in values. A pediatrician from the reception had posted a vague Facebook status about witnessing true colors at a wedding that had gotten over 300 likes from the Chicago community. The groundswell was already building, and I hadn't even released the video yet. My parents tried calling on the 5th day. I let it go to voicemail. My father's message was predictably manipulative. Jessica, we need to discuss what happened at your wedding. There's been a misunderstanding, and people are saying things that aren't true. Call me back immediately so we can handle this privately before it gets out of hand. My mother's message came 10 minutes later. Sweetheart, I don't know what you think you heard, but you're overreacting. We love you, and we're worried about you. Please call us back so we can talk about this like adults. Amanda sent a text that made my blood boil. Mom and Dad are really hurt by how you're acting. That audio thing was taken out of context. You know they've always wanted the best for you. Stop being so sensitive and call them back. This is embarrassing for the whole family. I showed it to David, who shook his head in disbelief. Taken out of context? There's literally no context where sitting in a parking lot mocking your daughter's husband is acceptable. I spent day 6 consulting with a lawyer, just to make sure everything I planned to do was legal. The attorney, a sharp woman named Rebecca Walsh who specialized in defamation law, reviewed all my materials carefully. You're not making any false statements, you're not editing the video to misrepresent what was said, and you're not violating any privacy laws since this was a quasi-public event where they knew you were present and could have reasonably expected to be overheard, she concluded. Morally questionable to air family business? Maybe. Illegal? No. They can't sue you for telling the truth. That evening, I created a private YouTube video and drafted the social media posts that would accompany it. I chose my words carefully, focusing on facts rather than emotions. On June 15, 2024, my family skipped my wedding ceremony and reception. They sat in the venue parking lot for 3 hours on a Zoom call discussing whether attending was worth their time based on my husband's annual salary. Due to a technical mishap, their conversation was broadcast to our wedding guests and recorded by our photographer. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but because I believe people deserve to know who they're doing business with, whose charity boards they're supporting, and what values actually guide the people who claim to champion family and community. I attached the 11-minute video, the timeline of text messages and voicemails, the photographer's images of them in the parking lot during key wedding moments, and a final statement. My husband is a high school history teacher who spends his own money on classroom supplies and changes lives every day. He comes from immigrants who worked multiple jobs to give him opportunities. He treats people with dignity regardless of their bank accounts. My family believes his $55,000 salary makes him worthless. I believe their behavior makes them unworthy of the respect they've demanded for years. Judge accordingly. David read over my shoulder, his expression unreadable. When he finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You know there's no going back from this, right? Once you post it, your relationship with them is done. Forever." I turned to face him fully. There's no relationship to preserve. They sat in a parking lot for 3 hours calculating your value in dollars while we got married. My mother suggested bribing you to divorce me. My father said I'd be crawling back to them within 6 months. Those aren't the actions of people who love me. Those are the actions of people who see me as property that made a bad investment. He nodded slowly. Then I guess my only question is, when are you posting it? I checked my watch. It was 7:47 p.m. on a Thursday evening. Prime social media time when people were scrolling before bed. My father would be at his weekly poker game with business associates. My mother would be at her book club with country club friends. Amanda and Trevor would be at some networking event. None of them would see it immediately, which meant it would spread before they could do damage control. Right now, I said, and hit post. The video went viral within 2 hours. My phone started exploding with notifications so rapidly I had to put it on silent. The post was being shared across Chicago social circles, then to parenting groups appalled by the classism, then to teacher communities rallying around David, then to wedding-shaming groups fascinated by the parking lot footage. By midnight, it had 50,000 views. By morning, it had crossed 200,000. Local news stations had picked it up. A popular TikTok creator with 3 million followers had done a reaction video that added another 1 million views. The comment section was a tsunami of outrage directed at my family. My father called at 6:23 a.m., his voice shaking with rage. I didn't answer, but I listened to the voicemail. "What the hell have you done? Do you have any idea how many calls I'm getting? You've destroyed this family, Jessica. Destroyed it. We can fix this if you take that video down right now, But if you don't, I swear to God, there will be consequences. My mother's voicemail came at 6:31 a.m. and she was crying, "How could you do this to us? After everything we've given you, all the opportunities, all the sacrifices, you've humiliated us in front of everyone we know. Please, please take it down. We can talk about this. We can fix this." Amanda sent a barrage of texts. "You vindictive bitch. Trevor's firm is already asking questions. Do you know what you've done to his reputation? To Dad's business? To Mom's charity work? You're going to regret this." Then, 10 minutes later, "People are calling me a classist monster because of you. My friends are seeing this. Delete it now." Then, 20 minutes after that, "Fine. You want war? You've got war. Don't expect any help from this family ever again." I blocked all three of them and made coffee. David emerged from the bedroom looking anxious. "It's everywhere," he said, showing me his phone. "The teachers' union is tweeting about it. Parents from school are messaging me support. My principal called to say the district is proud to have me and wants to make sure we're okay." He sat down at the kitchen table, still scrolling. "Jessica, there are think pieces being written about this. Opinion columns about wealth inequality and how society values different professions. Someone started a GoFundMe to support the teacher who married for love, and it's already at $15,000 from strangers." I sat beside him and pulled up the video analytics. The numbers were staggering. 350,000 views and climbing, 72,000 shares, 15,000 comments, and I scrolled through a representative sample. This is why I left my wealthy family. Teachers deserve so much better than this treatment. I'd be honored if my daughter married someone who changes lives instead of just makes money. The dad sitting in his Mercedes calculating bribe money is peak disgusting rich people behavior. Those parents are what's wrong with society. But the comments that interested me most were the ones from Chicago locals who recognized my family. "Wait, is this Robert Martinez from Martinez Development? I almost hired him for a renovation. That's Patricia Martinez, who runs the Spring Valley Charity Gala? What a hypocrite." I go to country club with these people. They're always talking about family values and community. This is sick. My company was considering partnering with Martinez Development Group. Not anymore. The consequences came faster than even I had anticipated. By day 2 of the video's viral spread, my father's business phone was ringing non-stop with cancellations. A luxury condo development he had been contracted for, worth over $12 million, pulled out citing incompatible values with our brand image. The Spring Valley Country Club, where both my parents had been members for 15 years, issued a statement on their Facebook page. "We have accepted the resignation of Patricia Martinez from our charity board and events committee. Our club is founded on principles of respect and inclusion that we must uphold in both word and deed." A local news station requested an interview with David and me. We agreed, meeting them at a coffee shop near our apartment. The reporter, a woman named Jennifer Park, had clearly done her homework. "Your father released a statement this morning calling the video a malicious distortion of a private family conversation taken out of context," she said, showing us her tablet. "He claims you edited it to make them look worse than they are, and that this is revenge for them having legitimate concerns about your financial future. How do you respond?" I had prepared for this. "I'm happy to release the unedited 23-minute version," I said calmly. "It includes additional comments about my husband's parents' immigration status, suggestions that I'm mentally unstable for not prioritizing wealth, and detailed calculations about how much money it would take to bribe my husband into divorcing me. If that's the context my father wants people to see, I'm more than willing to provide it." Jennifer's eyebrows rose. "And you have this unedited version?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the file. "Would you like me to send it to you right now?" The interview aired that evening. David came across as humble and articulate, explaining that he became a teacher because education had transformed his own family's trajectory. I came across as measured and factual, providing receipts for every claim. When Jennifer asked if I regretted exposing my family publicly, I said, "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they valued money more than their daughter's happiness, but I don't regret making sure people know who they really are behind the charitable donations and family values rhetoric. Actions reveal character, and their actions revealed everything." My father's company started hemorrhaging clients. 3 ongoing projects were put on hold pending ethics reviews. 2 major investors pulled out of a commercial development, citing reputational concerns. The Tribune ran a business section piece titled, "When Personal Values Impact Professional Relationships," The Martinez Development Fallout. It detailed how modern consumers increasingly demanded alignment between corporate messaging and executive behavior, using my father's company as a case study in reputation destruction. My mother's social circle imploded spectacularly. Women she had lunched with for years suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Her charity gala, scheduled for September, lost 8 corporate sponsors in 48 hours. One sponsor, a local bank, issued a public statement. We cannot in good conscience support an event organized by someone whose private conduct contradicts the inclusive values we promote. The gala was ultimately canceled, a humiliating first in its 20-year history. Amanda and Trevor's life unraveled in parallel. Trevor's investment firm, which prided itself on ethical investing and social responsibility, launched an internal investigation after clients raised concerns. One major client, a progressive family foundation, explicitly cited the viral video in their decision to move their portfolio elsewhere. We cannot have our investments managed by someone associated with such blatant classism and elitism, their statement read. Trevor was placed on administrative leave while the firm assessed the reputational damage. Amanda's social media accounts, once full of influencer-style posts about her perfect life, were flooded with comments. Every photo of her designer handbag, every vacation post, every humble brag about Trevor's success was now met with responses like, "Must be nice to have money to waste while judging teachers as worthless," and "Your brother-in-law changes lives and you mocked him for his salary." Gross. She eventually deleted her Instagram after a local mom blogger with 50,000 followers posted a takedown titled, "The Problem with Performative Perfection, Amanda Martinez and the Illusion of Class." But the most devastating consequence came from an unexpected source. David's school district, energized by the public support, announced a new teacher appreciation initiative, funded by donations that had poured in after the video went viral. The GoFundMe strangers had started reached $68,000, all earmarked for classroom supplies and teacher support programs. Dr. Chen appeared at a school board meeting that was streamed online, giving an impassioned speech about David's dedication. "This young man spends his own limited income to ensure his students have what they need to succeed," she said. "While some people judge worth by bank account balances, we judge worth by impact. And Mr. Chen's impact on this community is immeasurable." The video of her speech went viral too, creating a secondary wave of support for teachers generally, and David specifically. Parents from school organized a Thank a Teacher campaign, sharing stories about how David had helped their children. Former students, now in college, posted testimonials about how his history classes had changed their perspectives and inspired them to think critically. The contrast between this genuine community appreciation and my family's cold calculation of his monetary value became stark and undeniable. My parents tried one more manipulation tactic. My mother showed up at our apartment building, creating a scene in the lobby until building security called me. When I came down, she looked terrible. No makeup, hair unwashed, eyes red from crying. "Jessica, please," she begged. "Your father's business is dying. We're going to lose the house. Amanda and Trevor are talking about divorce because his career is ruined. You've destroyed this family. Whatever point you wanted to make, you've made it. Please help us fix this." I looked at the woman who had raised me, who had taught me to value appearances over substance, who had spent 3 hours in a parking lot mocking the man I loved. "You want me to help you fix this?" I asked quietly. "The same way you helped me on my wedding day? The same way you supported my marriage? The same way you valued my happiness over your social status?" She opened her mouth to respond, but I continued. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to deal with the consequences of your own actions. And you're going to learn that people aren't disposable just because they don't meet your income requirements." "But we're family," she whispered desperately. "After everything, we're still family." I shook my head. "No. Family shows up. Family supports you even when they disagree with your choices. Family doesn't sit in a parking lot calculating your spouse's worth in dollars. You made it very clear at my wedding that blood relation doesn't mean what you think it means." I turned to walk back to the elevator, then paused. "Oh, and Mom? That unedited 23-minute version I mentioned? I'm releasing it tomorrow. Since Dad wants context, everyone can have all of it." Her face went white. "You can't. Jessica, please. There are things on that recording that will destroy us completely." I smiled the same calm smile I had given at my wedding reception. "I know. That's the point." The elevator doors closed on her desperate expression, and I went back upstairs to where David was grading papers at our kitchen table. living the life we had chosen together, worth more than all my family's money combined. The unedited 23-minute version dropped at 9 a.m. the next morning. I had spent the evening editing it with timestamps and context notes, making sure nothing could be misinterpreted. This version included my father's rant about how my choice of husband reflected poorly on his business reputation. When clients find out my daughter married a teacher, what does that say about my judgment? About our family's standards? It included my mother's discussion of my supposed mental health issues. Maybe we should have insisted she see Dr. Bernstein. This obsession with marrying down isn't normal. There's clearly something wrong with her thinking. But the most damning addition was a section I had initially cut for length. Trevor, Amanda's husband, had launched into a detailed mockery of David's parents. Can you imagine family dinners with them? The dad probably still packs a lunch pail. The mom probably cooks weird Chinese food. And those accents. How is Jessica supposed to introduce them to anyone important? Amanda had laughed and added, "Oh God, and their house. Did you see it when we drove by that one time? It's basically a shack." I'd die of embarrassment. The reaction to this extended version was nuclear. The racism and classism were no longer subtext, but explicit, undeniable. Within hours, major media outlets picked it up. NPR ran a segment on economic discrimination and anti-immigrant sentiment in affluent communities. The Chicago Tribune ran an editorial titled "The Martinez Family and the Toxicity of Wealth Without Wisdom." Asian American advocacy groups highlighted Trevor's racist comments about David's parents, and Martinez development groups' remaining clients began abandoning them en masse. My father's company officially filed for bankruptcy protection within a week. Without contracts, without clients, without the reputation he had spent 30 years building, there was nothing left. The liquidation of assets was brutal and public. Their house in the suburbs, the one with the imported Italian marble countertops my mother had been so proud of, went into foreclosure. The cars, the club memberships, the investment accounts, all of it disappeared into debt repayment and legal fees. Trevor was terminated from his firm. Not suspended, not asked to resign, but fired with a statement that made headlines. "We have zero tolerance for the discriminatory views expressed by Trevor Blackwell. His employment has been terminated effective immediately, and we are reviewing all client accounts he managed to ensure our ethical standards were maintained." Amanda, whose identity had been entirely wrapped up in being Mrs. Trevor Blackwell, wife of a successful investment banker, found herself married to an unemployable pariah. She filed for divorce within 2 weeks, but the damage to her own reputation was irreversible. The community response was equally unforgiving. My mother's former friends gave interviews to local media about always sensing something off about Patricia Martinez's obsession with appearances. The country club not only accepted their resignation, but made it clear they would never be welcomed back. The charity organizations my mother had chaired scrambled to distance themselves, renaming events and scrubbing her name from historical materials. In wealthy social circles where reputation is currency, my parents had become radioactive. But I wasn't done. Using my professional expertise, I had set up Google alerts for my family's names, ensuring that anyone searching for them would immediately find the videos, the articles, the community response. I had tagged all the content with keywords related to their business and social activities, optimizing it for maximum searchability. When my father inevitably tried to reinvent himself in a new market, the first thing any potential client would find was the parking lot video. My mother couldn't volunteer for any organization without someone recognizing her name and refusing the association. David received a Teaching Excellence Award from the school district in a ceremony attended by over 300 people. The superintendent specifically mentioned the viral incident, praising David's grace under pressure and unwavering commitment to students despite facing unwarranted discrimination. The local news covered it, creating yet another contrast between David's rising public esteem and my family's spectacular fall. Former students created a hashtag, "Why Teachers Change Fees," that trended locally for days. My father tried one last desperate move. He showed up at David's school demanding to see him. School security wouldn't let him pass the front desk, but he caused enough of a scene that the police were called. David, alerted by the principal, came to the office with me on speakerphone. "Mr. Martinez, you need to leave," the officer said firmly. My father's voice was hoarse, defeated. "I just want to talk to him, man to man. I need him to understand we were just concerned about our daughter's future." David's response was measured and devastating. "Mr. Martinez, I understand concern. My parents were concerned too when Jessica introduced me to them. They worried I wouldn't be good enough for her, that my salary wouldn't provide the life she deserved. The difference is, they expressed that concern privately and respectfully, then got to know me and supported our relationship because they saw their daughter was happy. You sat in a parking lot calculating my worth in dollars and planning to bribe me into a divorce. There's nothing to understand. There's nothing to discuss. Please leave before you're arrested for trespassing. The officer escorted my father out. That evening, David and I watched the security footage that the school later released to media, with our permission, to document the harassment. My father looked broken, rumpled clothes, several days of beard growth, eyes hollow with desperation. The man who had sat in his Mercedes confidently mocking his daughter's choice now shuffled to his car alone, his empire destroyed, his family scattered, his reputation obliterated. I felt no sympathy. 3 months after my wedding, my parents' divorce papers were filed. The financial devastation had destroyed whatever relationship they'd had. My mother blamed my father for the business decisions that had made them vulnerable. My father blamed my mother for the social climbing that had made appearances more important than relationships. They fought viciously over the scraps that remained, each one trying to claim victim status to their former friends. Amanda's divorce from Trevor was equally bitter. Without his income, without her parents' support, without the social circle that had defined her identity, she had nothing. She tried reaching out to me once, a desperate email. "Jessica, I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm applying for jobs and your marketing expertise could help me rebuild my career." For old time's sake, I deleted it without responding. Old time's sake had died in a parking lot while she laughed during my wedding vows. The GoFundMe money was used exactly as intended. David's classroom got new textbooks, a document camera, and supplies that would last 3 years. The excess funded a district-wide teacher appreciation program that provided grants for classroom materials. Every time a teacher in the district used those resources, they saw a small plaque. Funded by the Teaching Excellence Initiative in honor of educators who change lives regardless of salary. David cried when he saw it installed in his classroom. 1 year after my wedding, David and I celebrated our anniversary at the same venue where we got married. This time, the guest list included his family, our real friends, and about 40 of David's students and their parents, who insisted on honoring the best teacher we've ever had. There were no empty seats. No one sat in the parking lot calculating our worth. No one questioned whether we deserved their presence. My parents had moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a less affluent suburb, both working retail jobs to make ends meet. My father's LinkedIn profile, once boasting about a multi-million-dollar development company, now listed him as an assistant manager at Home Depot. My mother worked at a boutique clothing store, the same kind of job she had once considered beneath discussion. The irony of her spending days serving customers she once would have dismissed was not lost on anyone who knew their story. Amanda had moved to a different state, trying to escape the reputation that followed her in Chicago. According to mutual acquaintances, she was working in administrative support and dating a mechanic, which would have horrified her former self. Trevor had been unable to find work in finance, and last anyone heard was selling insurance. The couple who had mocked David's salary and his parents' accents were now living the working-class life they had deemed worthless. David's parents, on the other hand, had become beloved figures in our community. His mother's house-cleaning business had expanded after clients specifically requested her, wanting to support the family from the viral video. His father's construction company got more contracts than he could handle from people who appreciated his work ethic. They attended every school event David's students invited them to, their accents and all, treated with respect and admiration by families who understood that worth isn't measured in dollars. My career had flourished too. The viral video had inadvertently showcased my social media expertise, and I received job offers from 3 major agencies. I accepted a position as director of digital strategy at a firm specializing in reputation management, with a salary increase of $40,000. The irony of building my career on reputation management while destroying my family's reputation was not lost on me, but I felt no guilt. I was good at what I did, and the video had proven it. Sometimes I drove past my parents' old house, now owned by a young family who had no idea about its history. The children played in the yard where my mother had once obsessed over perfect landscaping. The imported Italian marble countertops she had been so proud of were probably being used for messy art projects and homework. The house had become a home, something it had never been when appearances mattered more than people. David asked me once, about 6 months after everything, if I ever regretted what I had done. We were lying in bed in our modest but comfortable apartment, the one we could afford on our combined teacher and marketing salaries. Do you ever wish you had just let it go? Kept the peace? Tried to reconcile? I thought about it carefully, then answered honestly. I regret that they made it necessary. I regret that they valued money more than love. But do I regret making sure the world knew who they really were? No, not for a second. They made their choices, and I made mine. The last contact I had with anyone from my biological family was a letter from my father that arrived on our anniversary. He had written it by hand, probably because he could no longer afford his expensive stationery. Jessica, I've had a year to think about what happened. I understand now that we were wrong. Your mother and I let our obsession with status blind us to what actually mattered. David is a good man, and you're happy. I see that now. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I want you to know that we were wrong, and you were right. I hope someday we can have some kind of relationship again. I showed the letter to David, who read it without comment. What are you going to do? He asked. I took the letter, folded it carefully, and put it in a drawer with all the other documentation of their behavior. Nothing, I said. He's right that he's not owed forgiveness. He made his choices when he sat in that parking lot calculating your value. Now he can live with the consequences. David nodded, understanding. We never spoke about it again. Our life isn't fancy. We don't have imported marble countertops or country club memberships or luxury cars. But we have friends who show up, family who supports us, and work that matters. David's students write him thank you notes that we keep in a box under our bed. Parents stop us in grocery stores to tell us how much he's changed their children's lives. My colleagues respect my expertise and celebrate my successes. We're building something real, something that can't be destroyed by a parking lot Zoom call or a viral video. My parents lost everything because they tried to destroy what we built. They calculated that David's $55,000 salary made him worthless, and my love for him a mistake. But they forgot to calculate the value of integrity, of community support, of people who measure worth in impact rather than income. That miscalculation cost them their business, their reputation, their social standing, and their daughter. Meanwhile, David and I have everything that actually matters, built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine love that no amount of money could buy. The wedding video is still online, with over 5 million views now. It resurfaces periodically when people discuss classism, family dysfunction, or the value of different professions. Each time it trends again, I get messages from teachers thanking me for standing up for them, from working-class families who felt validated, from people who had been judged for their income and felt seen. My family's cruelty became a catalyst for thousands of conversations about how we value people and what truly matters in relationships. I don't regret a single thing. My family wanted me to choose between my husband and their approval. They thought they were holding the power by withholding their presence from my wedding. What they didn't understand was that by showing their true nature so clearly, so undeniably, they gave me the perfect weapon to free myself from their toxic values forever. They calculated wrong, they lost everything, and I won completely. That's not revenge, that's justice. And justice, unlike forgiveness, is something I can live with peacefully for the rest of my life.